20 years after the Miryang gang rape case provoked controversy in South Korea, the country has once again been brought to its feet for the case. The single case with a teenage girl being sexually assaulted by 44 boys is perhaps one of the most horrific cases in Korean history. The culprits were, however, only a little punished, while the victim was left disgraced and the whole nation traumatized. The Miryang case is one of the most horrible periods in the history of South Korea. The catastrophe is still felt today. In 2004, a teenage girl was raped by 44 boys in a school in the city of Miryang in South Korea for a year. The main culprits were between 12 and 19 years of age, and the group was commonly known as the Miryang Coalition, which was well known for its gang-related violence, especially to fellow students, and cases of theft to get money. The victim, whose given name is unknown, was a middle school girl who came from an abusive home. When she was still a young girl, she was already suffering from physical and emotional abuse from her father. And then, one of the members of the gang invited her to Miryang. As soon as she got there, she hardly escaped a living hell of multiple rape, physical abuse, and blackmail threats. The assailants videotaped the rapes for the purpose of even further domination of the victim. Nevertheless, all the crimes that Choi was subjected to were reported to the police, and yet, she suffered a series of misfortunes. The police also screwed up, not shielding her identity and exacerbating the trauma. Most of the perpetrators were released from criminal allegations because they were juveniles and slash, or due to inadequate proof or evidence. This was the case with the victim's family, wherein they were unable to get justice for they were threatened and intimidated by other members of the perpetrators' families. The end of the case can be deemed destructive for Choi. 2 of us had major depression. 1 attempted suicide at least 3 times, and none have had a stable job. Some of the effects that have been as a result of the trauma include inability to complete her high school education and years of emotional suffering. The governing is corrupt, and while the case of Miryang received widespread attention, the offenders at best received mere slap on the wrist. Some of them were taken to juvenile detention facilities, while others were simply released, leaving them without charges to answer for. The victim's family was compensated little, while the criminals went on living their everyday life with a certain degree of freedom. 20 years later, the Miryang case has resurfaced in the spotlight due to the actions of a Korean YouTuber. The YouTuber, who had obtained permission from the victim's family, exposed the names and workplaces of the perpetrators. This led to a flood of online backlash, with netizens bombarding the perpetrators' social media accounts and workplaces. Some of the accused lost their jobs, and businesses temporarily closed in response to the public outcry. The revelation of the perpetrators' identities has reignited the public's demand for justice and accountability. While the case may be 2 decades old, the enduring impact of sexual violence on the victim and her family remains a stark reminder of the need for systemic reforms to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The incident came to light when celebrity chef Pyeon featured a restaurant associated with one of the perpetrators, Park, in a promotional video. This led to significant backlash against the restaurant, which was subsequently exposed for operating in an illegally constructed building. The restaurant faced a wave of negative reviews and eventually had to close for expansion and relocation. Park, who had changed his name and was living a comfortable life with his family, found himself under intense scrutiny when his past actions were brought to light. After being involved in the high-profile Miryang case, Park had attempted to distance himself from his criminal past by adopting a new identity. Despite this effort, his former actions, which had remained hidden for years, resurfaced due to an investigation by the YouTube channel NoTalk Archive. When the channel exposed Park's identity, the public reacted sharply and immediately condemned him for his wrongdoings. When the news of the Meschera involvement in the gang rape became public, Park's current life, which seemed quite normal albeit quiet, became disrupted. The virtual profile that was once used by him to build a proper image of himself was soon brought down to its knees. People's anger emerged on social sites and discussion forums, and Park was eventually criticized for the actions done by her government. He received torrents of hate coming through his accounts, and his private and public life began being erased by having such a lens pointed at him. Increasing concern of the public and the profiling attention shifted towards him. Park tried to deflect the anger by filing the privacy complaint. But the legal action did not help to stop negativity to come further in his path. It is due to the nature of the internet and the response it engulfs that Park's past was revealed, and the track record he sought to bury was brought to the public. Another culprit, the one known by the name of Shin, also provoked much controversy when the YouTube channel founded by NoTalk Archive accused him of being a member of a gang involved in the Miryang Case. Whenever there is an incident concerning a specific offender, chances of that person being nabbed quickly are high, especially if they once worked at a foreign car showroom like Shin, where there are proofs of your actions in social media profiles. The broadcasting of the channel wrote in detail about Shin's professional and personal backgrounds, and this information was continued to be spread in different online forums. The unchanging and systematic nature of the posts of Shin's social accounts, in which, for the most part, he presented himself as a happy, wealthy man, has become the object of increased criticism and anger. His internet activity became a matter of attention, and some of the things like the photos of his cars and his hobbies like golfing became points of references taking into consideration his criminal record. This was because the feeling of his comfort and affluence that he was currently enjoying further provoked the anger of the public together with the past offenses that he committed. The backlash was swift and severe. The foreign car showroom where Shin was employed faced a barrage of negative comments and reviews on social media, along with complaints directed at their official channels. The public outcry against Shin put significant pressure on the company to act. In response to the mounting criticism and the potential damage to their reputation, the showroom took decisive action by terminating Shin's employment. The decision to dismiss Shin was seen as a necessary step to distance the company from the scandal and to address the concerns of the outraged public. However, the fallout from the case continued to affect Shin's life beyond his employment. His social media profiles were inundated with hostile comments, and his former employer's reputation suffered as a result of their association with him. The exposure of the perpetrators in the Miryang case triggered a wave of collateral damage, impacting several innocent individuals connected to them. One notable example is Chong, who was mistakenly identified as Shin's girlfriend. The error, propagated by the YouTube channel NoTalk Archive and further amplified by the public's reaction, had severe repercussions for Chong. Inasmuch as the lady received unfair treatment, she, in turn, responded through making a public statement to refute the charges pressed against her by Chong. Her defense was to say that she had no business with Shin, and she is being a victim of a mistaken identity. Conclusion to the whole scenario brings out the realization that information ought to be handled more responsibly and with more cautiousness. It is imperative that such actions do not in any way harm innocent people. The case discussed above reflects the extent and consequences of public exposure and the desirability. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and comment.